Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to this impromptu edition of GITBTV. Myself and Stocky are currently sat in the factory, have just attended the open mic session with the new management team, Steve Evans, Paul Rayner. What did you think?
Very unsure to start off with. I think he's won potentially a lot of people that were undecided. He's put a few stories on the internet, a few facts straight.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one big thing I've learned tonight. Yeah, is that don't believe everything you read on Wikipedia.
They speak a good game, both of them, Rayner and Steve.
Is that expected?
I think, yeah.
I think we was all coming for a charm offensive tonight, weren't we?
Anything like this, it's going to be positive. It's all going to sound right. It's just whether they can make that materialise on the pitch, and I think now that's where they need to be judged.
Yeah, 100%. Of course, the biggest thing, like I think Mr. Evans and Mr. Rayner said themselves repeatedly throughout the hour that they spoke, is that they're going to be judged on winning football matches, and if we're winning football matches, more people might come and watch us, and those that are staying away might come back. Some might not, that's up to them, but we always said, based on what we thought we knew, is how I'm going to say it now, not based on what we knew, so based on what we read on the internet, what we read in newspapers, which are not trustworthy. I didn't back the appointment, I've said that. You were very apprehensive, but we never said we were not going to come and watch football matches. No. We weren't going to come and stop supporting Gillingham Football Club, and we weren't going to come and not support the 11 players that are put out on the pitch every Saturday, every Tuesday, regardless of who they're put out on the pitch by. What you talked about, winning fans over, I think it was quite key that one of the first people who stood up was that he's not been a season ticket holder for a few years for one reason or another. Steve Evans has been appointed and he's gone and got a season ticket, so that gives you a little bit of a clue.
Conversation we done on the reaction video a few weeks ago, when we said on the face of it, for what he is as a manager with his track record, and
if we stripped everything else away,
if we stripped away his character, then it is a good appointment, and it is one that leads to excitement to some fans. So
yeah, and I think I'm probably more excited after listening tonight and actually taking the time to meet them both in person. But again, it always boils down to one thing, is that if we're earning 3 points most Saturdays and Tuesdays, then I'm going to be happy.
He's definitely got a winner's mentality, and that's probably where he's fallen foul of us in the past, because sometimes he has beaten us, and it's the way he's gone about it. And
yeah,
I think it's always one of them, like players that are like going to players that are hated. The team they play for absolutely love them, because they know that they would have them on their team.
So it creates that siege mentality that you spoke about, yeah, definitely. So it'd be interesting to see.
But then it's about getting the balance right. One of the questions was in regards to our reputation, and due to his previous misdemeanours, him affecting the reputation of the club. So it's about getting that fine balance.
Yeah, and he's aware.
You want passion, but you don't want
overstepping the mark. Yeah. Of course you don't, because he's no good to us. I know he laughed and said that if we're playing well, he'll spend a lot more time up in the stands than he will in the dugout, because it means we're getting results, and he doesn't need to be down there, and he'll leave that to Paul Rayner. But we don't want him missing games because he's suspended, in the same way that we don't want key players missing games due to suspension, because it creates a certain reputation, like you say. But then under Tony Pulis all them years ago, we had plenty of red cards, but it wasn't for stuff off the pitch, that was just for being 150% committed and making sure that you won at all costs. But let's get on to the points then that were actually spoken about, because we've done a bit about our opinions.
Yeah, so it started off with a bit of an introduction. Basically, Mr. Evans said that the chairman's tried to get him out of Mansfield before, but the chairman there refused because they're rich and they had.
And Paul Scally couldn't afford to buy him out of his contract, basically.
No need to let him go. And Evans just mentioned the recent work that he's been doing in regards to scouting while he's been at games, and he's pretty much the reason why Thomas Holy has gone to Ipswich, because
he seems to be good friends with Paul Lambert. Talking after the session.
So he's done that, and obviously recommended him.
He has been replaced. That was early breaking news. Yep. Jack Bonham has arrived on a 2-year deal from Brentford. I'm not sure if it's a free transfer. The fact that the tweet come out from the club that said it's from Brentford would indicate there might be a fee involved. Played around 40-45 games for Bristol Rovers in our division last season and kept 15 clean sheets. So on the face of it, seems like a very decent signing. He said that there's going to be another keeper coming in. He said by Monday or Tuesday there might be a couple of signings. We didn't know what positions. He's looking at 3 new strikers, I think he said, to complement Brandon Hanlon. The interesting one was the midfield. He got asked quite a lot about the midfield, didn't he? And he said that he's had meetings with individuals.
He made it quite clear that
that's the area that needs work.
Yeah, he didn't rate the midfield at all. He said that when he came to us last year with Peterborough, he found it too easy to play through us.
He said that he felt sorry for the centre halves. I think,
and Max, yeah.
Yeah, because they were just left fighting a losing battle effectively, weren't they? I mean, and you look at that team that they've got, the likes of Dembele and Tony, you want to be at your best against them at the best of times, not, just rolling over and having your belly tickled.
But in regards to the midfielder, he got asked about squad players that he's going to be working with, or
he got asked about contracted players that he thinks might not play, and he said he's spoken to 3 or 4 midfielders, was it, that he said are not going to be in his plans initially?
Yeah. So he's already told 3, I've got it here somewhere, he's told 3 players that they're not required. Didn't say who, because he said they've got to go tell their families and things like that.
So we've done a bit of surmising.
Yep. So
based on the fact that he didn't list their names. He mentioned quite a few of the 14 contracted players.
He said that he's pleased he's inheriting Max Amar and Barry Fuller. He mentioned
Conor Ogilvie, because he signed him.
Conor Ogilvie. He mentioned Regan Charles Cook.
Mark Byrne.
Said Burner had good energy and List had good pace but was inconsistent.
Said he rated Hanlon.
Yeah, he quite likes Hanlon.
But the big omissions in terms of the middle of the park, which was obviously the pressing issue, the ones that he didn't mention were Darren Oldacre, Josh Reese, Dean Parrott, Bradley Stevenson and Callum Riley. So make of that what you will, Gills fans. We're not for 1 minute saying here that it's definitely them that are going to be shipped out the door or whatever, but as I say, we're just guesstimating and surmising a little bit.
Well, in regards to the strikers, he said he's signing, in his words, he said a goal scorer.
Yeah, who will replace Tom Eaves' goals. He was quite categoric about it.
And I think a few others asked about Tom Eaves and him being replaced. Hoping to get 3 strikers in.
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to be Hanlon plus 3.
Yeah.
So we said about Elliot List maybe being played as a wide man this season.
Potentially.
Which would fit in with the fact that I think Steve Evans had previously said he likes to play, I think, 4-4-2. Two orthodox wide men, 2 strikers, and getting crosses into the box. I think that's how he liked to play at Peterborough, didn't he? I think he operated 2 wingers, Dembele, and 1 from the other side, whether that was Marcus Maddison or someone else. And then he had quite a good choice, didn't he, to be fair? Ivan Toney, Matt Godden. Was it Jason Cummings at the start of the season was scoring for fun? I think he was on loan from Forest, so it looks like we might be playing 4-4-2, or it could be a 4-2-3-1, I'm not sure. But
he said they've held initial talks with this striker who's a goal scorer, and that Scally is due to meet his representatives Monday. He also mentioned a young...
I'm not sure if this is the same person or this was one plus another. A young striker who's currently out in the Toulon tournament, the under-21 competition that's taking place, who plays for not a major nation, he said. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on.
Looks as if there's going to be a few bodies in. He said that ideally he wanted a squad of 20-21.
So if he's got 14
players at the moment,
if he thinks say 3 leave, that's 11. He's going to be we're going to be looking at 10 additions, I'd imagine. And then you'd probably bump that up. He did also say that he's got good contacts if they need to top that up near the end of the window. So I'm assuming that would be loan players.
One of the questions was about youth as well and using the youth team players. Paul Rayner said that they kept Pato for his experience with the youth team and his knowledge.
Yep.
And basically, it's the old adage: no matter how old you are, if you're good enough.
He mentioned a few at Leeds, if I recall correctly, didn't he? He said he went in there and watched the 23s game at Leeds, and he said there was the likes of Rolando Vieira, Sam Barham and Lewis Cook, who've all now gone on to play in the first team. Sam Barham's in the Premier League, I think, with West Ham, isn't he?
Yeah, he was,
yeah, so it seems that...
interestingly, he said that when he's at a club, he watches all age groups.
Right down to the under-8s, he said, under-8s upwards or under-9s upwards, yeah. He seems to know a lot of his stuff, which is good.
He's a definite football man, like he's mentioned about going out
moving to the area as well, he said, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, so he said he's been on trips to like Liverpool, he met Carlo Ancelotti.
So he had dinner with Carlo Ancelotti for 3 hours, yeah. I mean, imagine that must have been an unbelievable chat.
Yeah.
That would just be ridiculous. I mean, that's like one of the greatest managers ever to grace the game, in my opinion. Won everything, Champions League, Serie A's, Premier Leagues, FA Cups, the lot, and was half decent footballer for Italy as well, I think, and won stuff as a player. So,
but yeah, like you said, he's moved down to the area. He said he's done similar in his previous roles as Rotherham and Leeds. He's kind of left his family, I'm guessing, up in Scotland.
Get right in amongst it, which is good. Yeah, I think that can only be a good thing.
So he said he's renting in the Medway towns. So
poor sod.
So what else? So one of the questions was, what's he going to do to get the fans inside? He said that previously, when he's come into other clubs, he's had the negative reaction and that people don't want him there, but he's engaged with them, and
like he's done tonight, in fairness to him.
And he said that most places he leaves, a lot of fans are kind of gutted that he's gone. So
He spoke about the Peterborough thing, just going back to that, didn't he? He said that it was, I didn't realise it was that. So if he'd beaten Charlton on that last game before they got dismissed, they'd have gone third in the table. And they drew 0-0. So they didn't even lose the game, and he still got
he was asked a question about Peterborough, saying that allegedly he'd left due to falling out with some of the players. That was the first question, I think.
Oh, it was, yeah, you're right, yeah.
He said wasn't true that he's met with some of the players and their families since. He said he's met up with Dembele.
Said he was up there in Scotland when he watching Celtic with them, because the younger brother made his Celtic debut on the final day of the season, I think, against Hearts. Yeah. So
he said he met the captain and that recently, so he quashed that.
Ivan Toney, I think, was another one. He said he's been in touch. He said they still keep in contact via text as well. So he sort of squashed that. He did have one very uncomfortable question, but I think, in fairness to Steve, it was more uncomfortable for us in the audience when it was asked about this so-called tax fraud at Boston. And this goes back to my point about not believing everything you read on the internet. And I held my hands up, and I did apologise to Steve for that, and said, but yeah, effectively, the story, according to Steve Evans, is that he was in a contract meeting at Boston. The player asked for, say, 500 quid a week, and the chairman said, no, we'll give you 300 quid a week and a lump sum on the side, on the quiet, so to speak. So is that what they call a bung?
Yeah.
And Steve got convicted basically because he didn't grass up his own chairman. So that is the story. It's up to you whether you believe it or not.
Snitches get stitches.
What he said, yeah. And he obviously comes from a hard-working area of Scotland, so it's the end of it for me as far as I'm done. That episode's closed, and we need to look forward.
Asked about the Hesse incident from 2011 when he reported Hesse for, was it racial abuse?
So apparently Hesse called him a Scottish W. I can't remember it back completely, but effectively they're good mates.
Scottish B.
Was it Scottish B?
That's what he said. Yeah.
Oh no, we call him a Scottish W, didn't we, last season?
And basically said that he didn't report him, that the incident was overheard by a steward who reported it.
And then the police got involved.
And then the police got involved, and Evans said, I've called people a lot worse.
Yeah,
no
just
further
laughed it
action.
off. And now they get on really well.
Yeah. So, all over nothing, really, when it's kind of
it seemed much to do
like
about
that,
nothing, didn't it? Yeah, mountain out of a molehill, so...
He was asked about his behaviour and his antics and how he's going to improve.
This is an interesting one for me, because it's similar to footballers. So if you took like a Roy Keane or a Patrick Vieira at their prime, or a Wayne Rooney, if you take that edge off them, are they the same? Are they as good a player? So is it the same with... Obviously there has to be a line he can't cross.
Going back to the points that certain fans made tonight, some don't want the reputation affected and some are crying out for that passion. You know, we've had... As much as Lovell done a good job in the circumstances when things were going rough, he wasn't going to ruffle any feathers on the touchline.
Yeah, it was a lot of
AD
this, wasn't it? Stood on the touchline, arms folded, not really doing a lot.
Feathers, Edinburgh.
And I think we've said in terms of Mr. Scally and his appointment, we can't accuse him of not being bold and being brave with this appointment, because it's taken, I think I tweeted this morning, it's taken the club, it's taken Paul Scally, it's taken us as fans out of our comfort zone, and I think that could be a good thing. I'm not sitting here and saying they're going to win the league.
No,
but that moves on to the next one about what Steve has said the aim is, and I think this is brilliant to hear, to be quite honest.
His exact quote was that you've got to be objective and aim for the playoffs. He didn't come here to be mid-table. He said he could easily have picked a job elsewhere and just...
He indicated that he could have taken a part-time job somewhere almost. Didn't he? He said I could have gone to a club and done 2 days a week and aimed to be mid-table. Or maybe that was just like a figure of speech, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's refreshing for me, because all we've heard for the last however many seasons is the first objective is getting to 50 points. Now I'm not saying we're going to get in the playoffs, but it's nice to aim a little bit higher, isn't it?
It's nice to have that bit of expectation there. And he basically
just hope it don't all come crashing.
Ended that last bit is that he wants everyone pulling in the same direction. He did mention the chairman and that the chairman's going through a rough time. Mr. Scally wasn't in attendance tonight. I'm not too sure the reasons.
No,
why.
He's not even been mentioned. So it's his club, it's his choice at the end of the day. Yeah. So there's no point crying over spilt milk, so to speak. It's not going to change it.
He was also asked about Conor Ogilvie and whether he's going to play at centre back, and with a wry smile on his face he said you won't see him many times at left back.
So it indicates Conor is going to be competing for a centre back berth. He did also say that it could be as the left side of a 3, I think. He did say the left of a 3 in the
side of centre back, I think.
So whether that's as a back 4 or as a back 3, we're not sure. But again, it would indicate flexibility in a couple of systems that we can go to, which would be nice. Because I think we got a little bit stuck with the diamond last season, didn't we? Towards the end of the campaign and throughout in general, to be honest.
Also got asked about home form and improving the atmosphere. Paul Rayner said that the home form's crucial. Knew from previous visits that it can be a hostile atmosphere. They basically plan to press from the front. One of the questions was asked about, again, the midfield and teams being able to play through us and no pressure. And Paul Rayner said that their aim is to press from the front.
He said he'd be hollering at the back four to get the back four closer to the midfield and in turn get the midfield closer to the front players, didn't he? He said you won't be letting any teams come out and roll it to their full backs and roll it to their centre backs. So obviously proof is in the pudding and we'll only see that come August. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely said all the right things and
could be signing
come up with the right answers
next week, according to.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a busy couple of weeks. It looks
Monday,
to me,
Tuesday,
just in my own opinion, is I think that it'll try and get everyone in quite early, and then we can have a good pre-season with all of them rather than waiting right up to the end of the window. I think that will just be loan signings if we have to, which I think is a good way to work.
Yeah. And then if Mr. Bradley Dack's sold,
we've got millions to spend. We'll probably be in the Premier League in 3 seasons because Steve
apparently
categorically said that
going towards transfers,
any sell-on clause is all going in the coffers.
Yeah.
Another one. Proof is in the pudding. But just to sum up, I think we've covered everything in there, or most of what we've got written down anyway. So I know you was very apprehensive at the beginning. Didn't give them a round of applause when they walked out. No. I gave a polite one. Have you changed your thinking a little bit? I know I have.
Yeah, I'm. It's good to hear him answer certain questions and,
like you said, to get it from the horse's mouth.
Gauge a bit of a different opinion about him. Primarily, he'd be judged on the pitch, and you could say he's won the battle, but will he win the war?
Of course, yeah.
At the moment,
it's a good start. It's a promising start. There's a couple of good signings.
He's engaging with us, and the chat that we had at the end with him as well.
Very promising.
He's upfront and honest with us, and answered our questions and had a
gets on well with his window clean.
Yeah, he's a good storyteller. I'll give him that as well.
He is, and I think the accent helps as well.
Yeah,
it sort of draws you in. It draws you in a little bit. Yeah,
sound funny as well,
but not as big as I thought.
No, he's quite small.
He's very short, and which in turn then makes you think that Paul Rayner's really tall and he's not. And I think I was comfortably taller than both of them.
But no,
just got off on a tangent there.
They've seemed pleasant enough
Stocky
on the
still
face
doesn't know
of
how much he weighs.
I don't think you could really ask that.
We'll ask him at the Player of the Year day when we've won the title. Anyway,
the toilet.
Yeah, Stocky will eat his dinner.
But no, it's Evans will eat mine. That's the only one.
We're all done. I thought it was a worthwhile exercise to sum up.
I think it's definitely worthwhile coming. I think a lot was taken out from it, and hopefully, I think a few people are swayed into getting behind the team. And
again,
at the end of the day,
take out Steve Evans and all the layers and the onion and whatever and stuff like that. I think I'm looking forward to the new season a lot more than I was before we come tonight. I think the signings could be quite exciting. I think hopefully. The interesting one again, sorry, we've gone off on a tangent again, was the fact that he was asked about our home form, but he was quite open and said that Peterborough's home form wasn't good enough. But then for me, I think that's a good sign because he'll be doubly aware of that and almost trying extra hard to make sure that he doesn't make the same mistake here. So I think we've been absolutely fine. Again, I'm not saying we're going to go and win the title. I'm not going to go on my William Hill account and put 50 quid on us to win the league or anything like that. But having heard him, having seen the initial 2 signings, which I think are promising, next season, what would you indicate would be, or would you say would be a decent season? I've said 8th to 12th. I would take anything like that.
My opinion is still the same at the moment as it was when we recorded the reaction video a few weeks back. I think you've got to see who comes in, you've got to see what other teams do.
Look at friendlies.
Like, it's still too early. Like, obviously...
Come on, give us an answer.
I want him to do well.
Give us an answer.
I'm still going to stick with mid-table. And I know...
So about similar, yeah.
Yeah, I know Evans wants to aim higher than that, and I applaud him for that because it's nice to have a bit of ambition. But I
nice
still
to just think we won't be battling relegation.
There's going to be quite a lot of squad rotation, turnover of players, and sometimes it works straight away, sometimes it takes a while to bed in. So it's one of them where you just have to see. But it's certainly going to be a roller coaster, and my opinion has changed the same. Remains the same on that as a few weeks ago. Whatever happens, good or bad, I think it's going to be an interesting few.
I think it'd be an interesting 6, 8, 9 months, wouldn't it? Yeah, regardless of whether we like Steve Evans or we like Paul Rayner. Again, and it comes back to the biggest thing. And like I say, my opinion has changed slightly after meeting him in person, but we was never going to not come to football matches this season. I was never not going to renew my season ticket. Stocky's was never not going to come to as many games as he can feasibly get to. We'll still be here as much as we can and trying to find a few away games that we can get to as well, and cheering on the boys and cheering on Gillingham Football Club, because the overriding thing I think for us and plenty of fans is, regardless of the manager in charge, is the love of Gillingham Football Club far outweighs that for me. So
definitely. without a doubt. Exciting times ahead, in my opinion, based on tonight.
I have to agree, regardless of whether we like him as an individual or not. But
bear with it.
That's enough from us. My battery is about to die. I'm desperate for a drink, which is currently being used as a camera holder. So, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to us rabbit on again.
It's nice.
I believe there will be show off. I believe there might be another Jules in the Blood injury time podcast this weekend. You never know, I might get an invite on this one to HQ.
You're due on it, I think, aren't you?
Hopefully. And
what's the topic going to be?
It's up to you. I've given you some suggestions. That's for a chat for another day.
No, the topic this week is first impressions.
First impressions, there we go.
First impressions of the channel, first impressions of your first game, or the people you go with. Should be interesting Friday.
We will get a tweet out. We will ask for stories, for questions as always. But until next time, up the Jules.